Should we use the label vegan or not? Hello guys, in this video I will react to the video of a vegan educator named Nico, and he have made a video where he says that we should not use the label vegan anymore, and instead of talking about the label vegan, just talk about the principle of veganism. So no more vegan, no more the word veganism, but just the principle. Do you think it's a good idea? In this video we will check that, and I can tell you that it's an horrible giga mega counterproductive idea, and I will try to explain it. Let's dive in the subject. Let's go.
I've stopped telling people that I'm vegan. I haven't changed my beliefs. I've just found a better way to communicate them. I think we made one huge communication mistake in the animal liberation movement. We keep teaching people a word instead of an idea.
Well, veganism is an idea. When we talk about veganism, we teach an idea and we explain what it is, right?
When the topic comes up, I rarely mention veganism anymore. I don't think humans should exploit other animals. No label, just the truth.
There is something weird in what he just say. He say, I just say the truth because I not talk about the label. I just say we should not exploit animals. I don't see the relation between the truth and the label veganism. Is the label, and I don't like the term label, is the word veganism a lie? Why talk about truth here? It's something a little bit weird, but we will go further. I don't think it's very important in the general video.
For every one person I see talking about animal liberation in the name of veganism, I hear hundreds talking about lifestyle, diet, harm reduction. Most people don't know that veganism is simply the principle that opposes animal exploitation.
Yeah, he's 100% right here. Most people don't know what veganism really means. They think that veganism is often associated with health, with environmental issues, that it's a thing to reduce the suffering of animals or to save everyone on the planet Earth. So there is a lot of misconception about veganism. But that's absolutely not a reason to hide and not talk about the word veganism. Every word is today distortionated. Every word doesn't mean anything in this world. Justice doesn't mean anything. Exploitation doesn't mean anything. Peace doesn't mean anything. Respect doesn't mean anything. So if we start to suppress the use of a word because nobody understands their real meaning, we end up saying nothing. And if you think about that, just the concept of exploitation is not understood in the general population also. So why talk about the principle of not exploiting someone if people don't understand the word exploitation? It's the same reasoning as Nico, but it's arbitrary because the term exploitation is misunderstood in the same way than the term veganism. When you talk to people, they don't think that using an animals by treating the animals nicely is a form of exploitation. Everybody have different opinion about what the words means, and the point is certainly not to stop using words because people don't understand them. This is completely absurd logic. On the opposite, we should stay on our ground and understand, okay, every word are misunderstood, but we will take the words and the notions that are important for our fight to free the animals, and we will explain to the people and we will correct them.
But veganism has an original definition, sure. But people don't learn words from history. They learn them from how they're used.
And how the words are used is based on how we explain the things. It's sure that if we don't explain what veganism is, nobody will understand. This is sure, 100% sure. If we let the anti-vegan organization define the term of veganism, of justice, of ethic, of respect, of course, we are in big trouble.
The media, The majority and companies shape that meaning. And if your business depends on exploiting animals, then the last thing you want is for people to see veganism as a principle against animal exploitation. You'd much rather they see it as a restrictive diet or a niche lifestyle choice. Luckily for them, it's a label that has proven itself to be remarkably easy to dilute.
And what he's saying right now is, in fact, without intentionally realizing it, is an argument in favor of keeping the word veganism and explaining it and never hide it, never leave it. Precisely because he understands that media, like he said, like companies who work in animal exploitation, don't use the word correctly and even are happy with that because it's not a dangerous term to reduce veganism to health and to environmental issue or to welfare. So it's a reason more to stay our ground and say no. Veganism is not that. We are vegan and we will tell you what it is. Stop the bullshit. It's not that veganism. If you lose this word because other people use it wrongly, but then you lose everything. You lose the word justice, you lose the word respect, you lose the word ethic, you lose everything. Speciesism. Speciesism is lost by people inside the vegan movement. There is even... So, what is funny is to realize when we think about that the term speciesism is there is people inside the vegan movement who want to destroy this notion, and now there is people inside the vegan movement who want to destroy also the term veganism. So it's funny to think how crazy sometimes. I don't judge people. I talk about ideas. How crazy we can be, how irrational we can be. Instead of keeping our ground and not let misconception and bad interpretation take place, we just run away and leave notions that are just the most important thing. In fact, there is two very, very important notions when we talk about creating a vegan world. Speciesism, veganism. Speciesism is the root cause of animal exploitation. It's because we are speciesists that we exploit animals. And speciesism is not a bad word. Maybe I will make a video about that, but in my book, I explain the thing very precisely with a lot of questions. Speciesism is the idea that we think we are superior to animals and that we can use them for this reason, and that they are so inferior that they are nothing, and we can use them like tools. So this notion explains why we exploit animals, and veganism is the solution to speciesism. Is a solution to the idea that we can exploit animals. Veganism states that animals have a right to be free. They are individuals. So if we lose the term speciesism and we lose the term veganism, we end up by saying nothing. And even if you want to try later to explain them, the very word that you will be using can also be recuperated, misunderstood by other people, and again, you end up doing nothing, saying nothing, and this is the absurd and counterproductive conclusion to this idea to delete a word because it's misunderstood.
Another problem with labels is that people already think they know what they mean. So even if you explain veganism correctly, many people still filter it through everything they've heard about it.
Yes, it's true. You can explain something to someone, and because they have a background, an educational background that is opposite to the idea that you want to explain, even if you explain, they are not necessarily convinced. So this is true, but this is not a fatality. If it was the case, you could not say anything anytime. You can directly never doing vegan education again. You never go on the street again. You never talk with non-vegan again, because everybody is speciesist. Everybody thinks that it's okay to exploit animals. And because they have filter, you will explain to them, but they will not understand. They will not change. This is absurd. Obviously, some people, vast majority of people don't change directly, obviously, but people change. If you have change, how does it is not possible to make other change?
Don't make people decode a label first. When you hide an idea behind a word, people first have to understand that word before they can understand the idea.
But by understanding the idea, they understand the word. And by understanding the word, they understand the idea. In fact, there is no separation between the word veganism and the idea to not exploit animals. It's exactly the same. So the fact that you say first veganism and then you explain that veganism is the idea that we should not exploit animals, or the fact that you say we should not exploit the animals and then you say so that's why we should become vegan, it's the same. It's the same thing. There is no this distinction. And by the way, nothing is hidden here. When you say we should become vegan, there is no organization that I know who talk about veganism from a justice point of view who just say veganism, bye bye. No, that doesn't exist. We help people to understand veganism, and obviously we explain what is veganism. When Anonymous have a protocol, they have a dedicated question to the notion of veganism. When Vegan for Justice, my organization, talk with people on the street, all the conversation leads to veganism and to the idea of what is veganism. So there is no this distinction. It's not whether the word or whether the idea. There is no trap here. Both are connected. You cannot explain the word without explaining what it is. And you cannot explaining what it is without saying to people the word veganism. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Of course, people must become vegan. If they not have the word vegan, they just have the notion of not exploiting animals. Okay, but veganism is the whole concept that recap this idea and also that explain that behind this principle there is a practice, and this practice is coherent with this principle, and the practice is we will not be directly responsible of the exploitation of animals in our society. So it's absolutely necessary to have a word to help people understand a principle and a practice, and also a way to do activism. Because when we understand that veganism is a project, that Leslie G. Cross was explaining that it's the idea that man, when he say man, it's human should live without exploiting animals. It's a project. We want all the planet to become vegan. So we have a recommendation to make the planet vegan. This is also important. So there is a lot of aspects of veganism that are in that word. If you lose the word, you just have separated ideas and it doesn't make any sense. You lose your power.
And the more direct your language is, the harder it is to manipulate. If I say, I'm vegan, people can argue about what vegan means. Is it healthy?
I tried being vegan once.
I heard it's good for the environment. But if I say humans should leave animals alone, animals should be free from human exploitation, then there's no label to redefine. Nobody says, is it healthy to believe that humans shouldn't exploit animals?
I tried believing that animals should be free from human exploitation once.
I heard that opposing oppression lowers your carbon footprint. Instead, now they're forced to engage with the principle itself.
This part is very, very important, guys. I don't know if you have seen what I saw, but there is a fallacy here. And as vegan educator, it's important to recognize fallacy. So it's a surprise that Nico used a fallacy here because fallacy is like, it seems like a good reasoning, but if you don't mind, if you don't pay attention, you are manipulated. And in fact, it's quite funny because Nico here talk about manipulation. He want to make us believe that it's whether you say I am vegan and you don't explain, or whether you talk about the principle without saying the word vegan. But in fact, there is a third option that he doesn't mention, that is talking about veganism and explaining what it is. And what is very surprising is that this is the reality of vegan education. Anonymous for the Voiceless, Vegan for Justice, other organization, they never said vegan and stop there. They always explain. There is no such a situation. So all this part of the video is meaningless because this situation doesn't even exist.
The label shifts the conversation from why to how.
So this is probably the most dangerous part of the video because he is saying the label, so veganism, shifts the conversation from why to how. But it's absolutely untrue. Veganism is essentially the idea of why we should not do things where we are directly responsible of animal exploitation, right? So what he is saying basically is take the wrong interpretation of veganism from the vast majority of people that they have from mainly the anti-vegan organization that have spread this false definition since decades, right? And they have educated a whole generation of people who care about animals with the wrong definition. And say, you see, the label, so he talked about veganism, the label, veganism, shifts the conversation from why to how. No, this, because you are talking about the wrong definition of veganism. So you see how it's confusing? He's taking the wrong interpretation and say, oh, you see, so we should not talk about veganism. But this is absurd because veganism is not this thing that is wrongly interpreted. This is not veganism. Veganism is precisely about why. So this is a complete nonsense.
How only matters after you've decided why.
So now this is the second fallacy that he is using. First, we have the fallacy of the false dilemma. And now we have the fallacy of straw man. What is a straw man? A straw man is defending a position from a false idea of what the other person is defending. And what he is doing now is exactly that. He's saying, yeah, but you know how we'll go after the why, which is correct. And who would oppose that? Obviously, he is right. But he is not right on the premise. He's not right because he used the wrong definition of veganism and assume that veganism is about how. The label is about how and not why. He is assuming that when you talk about we should not exploit animals, we are talking about why. But if you talk about veganism, you are talking about how. This is a straw man fallacy.
The practical questions don't disappear, they just stop being objections. Nobody who embodies the why will ever say things like, I agree animal exploitation is wrong, but you know, protein is confusing, and somewhere an indigenous person is hunting for survival, so I guess I'll just stay an oppressor.
Empirical reality disproves completely what it is explained here. So he is basically saying that when you understand the why, the practical questions don't start disappear, but they are not objection anymore. And he is giving the example of someone who understands that animal exploitation is wrong, but still talk about what about protein and what about indigenous people who exploit animals for survival. The whole reality disprove completely what he is explaining. So I don't know where he is coming from with this idea, because I know that he's doing a lot of vegan education. But what I can tell you is that almost everybody understands veganism logically. Almost everybody say, I understand that animal exploitation is wrong, but what about protein? But what about God? But what about plants? But what about the fact that we do that since a long time? But what about meat that have helped us to develop our intelligence? But what about lion? But what about the fact that moral is subjective? So this objection comes out automatically from every single person, even from the person who say, I understand veganism logically. I understand that animal exploitation is wrong.
Instead of teaching people the label, teach them the principle. Don't tell people that you're vegan. Tell them that you don't believe humans are entitled to exploit and enslave other animals, and that you live according to that belief. That's the conversation I want people to have. What do you think?
What I think is that it's a complete false dilemma fallacy. It's not whether you talk about, hey, I am vegan and don't explain anything, or you just talk about the principle and don't talk about veganism. There is the third solution, which is the normal solution, which is you talk about veganism and you explain what is veganism. I don't understand the whole concept of hiding a word because other people understand it wrongly. And this is the main point, guys. If we start to stop using a word because someone wrongly interpreted it, then you cannot talk anymore. We have to understand that every single word on planet Earth is wrongly interpreted. And that's okay. That's okay. If it's important word, we can explain them, not suppress them of our vocabulary. The word vegan, the word veganism is absolutely necessary. It's a word that we must yell from the top of the tower, from the top of the mountain. The great vegan educator Rafaela Rab have made some great words about the defense of the use of the term veganism. Let's hear what she have say.
I think we shouldn't hide that we are vegans. We need to make people even more aware of the word everywhere. Like, they shouldn't be able to leave their apartment, their job, without being confronted with veganism.
And she's 100% right here. We don't need to suppress the word. We need to say it louder. Louder, louder, louder. We need to change the narrative. We need to change this culture that have destroyed this so much important and strong meaning of freedom that Leslie J. Cross and Donald Watson have led to the earth. This is a gift they have left for animals, and we must take care of that gift. It's important to create a movement that is easily understandable, shareable, and that have an identity. And this is another point that I have not talked in the video really. It's the fact that people join a movement, whether it is a justice movement or not a justice movement, also because they want to feel part of something greater. They want to have a new identity of someone who fights for justice, someone who is strong. And for having this identity, having simple words that recap an idea is absolutely essential. It's also essential to communication. When people talk about the idea to not exploiting animals, to let animals be free, if we don't have a simple word to recap this idea, it's harder to communicate this idea because we are always in the obligation to talk about the idea to not exploit animals. And think about that, guys. And this is a very important point, is that we have the same problem with speciesism. Almost a lot of vegans are refusing to use that word, and this could be the topic of another video. Very, very important topic. Nobody talk about that, but very, very important. There is a big, big problem here. A big, big problem. And I think, by the way, that the rise and the birth and the rise of the dogmatic vegan group, that I call dogmatic vegan group, I will also do maybe another video for explaining really what it is and how it is a disservice, a real disservice to animals, even if there is good ideas. The birth and rise of the dogmatic vegan group is grounded in this refusal to use the word speciesism. And look about that, guys. We don't talk about speciesism. We don't say the word. Instead, what we say a very complicated and long sentence, which is the idea that make us believe that animals are resource and commodity for our use to our benefit. No. Just no. Just no. I don't say it's wrong to say this sentence. I just say that if we want to communicate to the world and if we want to be the more efficient possible, we have to use simple words. Simple word, guys. Simple words that can be easily shareable, easily usable. I don't know if we can say that in English. That recap an idea. Otherwise, we always talk about the idea that we should not exploit animals, the idea that we see animals as tools for our benefit. It's too long, guys. It's not bad, it's not wrong in itself, but why use long sentence when we can do that shorter? There is also another argument that I have not mentioned also, is that if we don't talk about veganism, about being vegan, then how can we oppose to welfare reform? How can we oppose to lab-grown meat? Easily. Because veganism in itself opposes to that thing. So if we don't have this concept of veganism, it's become pretty easy for people to say, I am for animals. I want to be part of the movement. I just think that welfare reform is a strategical solution to end animal exploitation. You cannot be part of the movement for animals if you are not vegan. You cannot be part of the vegan movement if you promote something that exploits animals. It's clear. But if you delete the words, how do you do? The whole justification for not using this word is absolutely meaningless and absurd, because the whole concept is people use and interpret this word badly. Okay, but people interpret exploitation badly. People interpret justice badly. People interpret ethic badly. People interpret everything badly. I interpret sometimes things badly. And if you don't tell me why I am wrong, I will keep making the same error. We have to be grounded in the truth. Our fight is a fight for justice. And the tool that we have for justice is a tool of truth. If we don't care about the truth, and if we let the bad interpretation make our behavior and our decision, we lose our power. Nobody should dictate what we say. We control the situation. We control the narrative. Guys, it's time to use our power back. Anti-vegan organizations have ruled this vegan movement since too long. So now it's our turn to make history.